Our group evaluated the effects that increased access to improved water sources has on the general health of a population, as well as its effects on specific ailments. While the exact definition of improved water source is unclear, it can be assumed that this is some combination of better infrastructure, increased access, and better sanitation. To begin, we wanted to see if the data in general showed any correlation that would warrant us looking further into the health effects of improved water sources. Thus, we chose an indicator of general health just for an initial perception of the data we were dealing with. This graph you see is a comparison between the overall access to improved water sources and child mortality. While other factors obviously influence child mortality as well, there's a clear correlation between the data. Nearly every bubble shifts up and to the left, indicating that as the access to water sources increases, child mortality decreases. This gave us enough of an initial impression to justify us digging into the claim that improved access to water sources is good for health. According to the World Health Organization in 2008, improved water supplies are fundamental to global health. They claim that safer water can prevent deaths 4 distinct ways. First, diarrhea, second, malaria, third, malnutrition, and fourth, drowning. This gave us our jumping off point for our investigations. First, we looked into the data on diarrheal deaths. Unfortunately, Gapminder only has information on diarrheal deaths in children during the year 2008. This obviously would give us extremely limited information because we have no other data to compare it to. Moreover, we found a similar problem with drowning deaths in that there was no data at all for drowning. Therefore, the rest of this video will be exploring the effects that improved water access has on both malnutrition and on malaria. Here you'll see a graph of the correlation between malnutrition and improved water access. Again, we see a clear trend up and to the left, indicating a negative correlation between improved water sources and malnutrition. Thus, this graph indicates that an improvement in water sources does in fact decrease malnutrition. This can specifically be seen in data from India. According to UNICEF, India is the #1 country in the world with underdeveloped children suffering from malnutrition. Between 1988 and 1991, the Economic Survey indicates that the country's manufacturing, construction, energy, and water sectors grew at an average rate of 8.9%. As this investment in water infrastructure boomed then, we saw a corresponding decrease in the malnutrition of children, supporting our initial claim. The last data sets we will look at investigate the claim that improved water sources decreases malaria. The following 2 graphs show the relationship between improved water and, first, reported cases of malaria, then second, reported deaths from malaria. An initial impression didn't show a clear trend between the two. Thus, we looked into some specifics. The first country we examined was Uganda. Uganda is a landlocked country in eastern Africa and adjacent to Lake Victoria that has historically been plagued with malaria. The first graph here shows the relationship between improved water and reported malaria cases. Note that despite an improvement in water sources, a preventative measure against malaria, the number of reported cases actually increases. Moreover, the next graph here shows the relationship between improved water sources and deaths from malaria. Again, we see no evidence to support the claim that these new water sources are decreasing deaths from malaria. In trying to find data that supported our initial claim, we investigated Malawi. Malaria is one of the leading causes of death for children in Malawi, while adults suffer on average 6.1 malaria episodes per year. The first graph again evaluates the relationship between water sources and cases of malaria. Here, the evidence is inconclusive. The number of reported cases spike and then decline and end with nearly no net change in malaria cases reported. Thus, we looked to find a potential relationship between the water and deaths from malaria. This trend does seem to support our initial claim, showing that as improved water source access increases, malaria deaths decrease. However, generally water sanitation is considered a preventative measure and likely would not affect deaths from malaria. For example, an insecticide-treated mosquito net program was instituted in Malawi in 1998 and increased the urban use of nets from 13 to 44%. This is more likely a larger contributor to the decrease in deaths from malaria than the water sanitation. That being said, it is still clear that improved water sources are good for a country's health and infrastructure alike.